I'm joined by Sarah Kaufman, the chief dance critic of the Washington Post and author of The Art of Grace, as well as Ingrid Lorentzen from the Norwegian National Ballet, director of the company. We discussed this morning, near the end of the conference, the effects of the #MeToo movement on the ballet world. Now, I want to hear your perspectives on this. How do you feel the ballet world has been affected and has changed recently as a result of these events?
I mean, I guess I would say from the point of view of a critic and a journalist, I think it has really brought the public into a realization of what the life of a dancer is all about. So adding a dimension of appreciation for the working conditions of dancers, for the training of dancers, for the culture inside the four walls of the company headquarters. Brings the audience into more kind of a behind the scenes perspective when the public is used to only seeing what's on the stage. Everything's perfect at the ballet is the saying, but really it's not. And so seeing the imperfections, rather than being a kind of a criticism or a detriment, I feel has been in many ways a positive, both from the audience perspective and from the ballet perspective, because it just builds awareness and appreciation and a connection between human beings watching other human beings and their stories unfold.
I think #MeToo has brought a great sense of humbleness to us as a community, to us as individuals. I think it's extremely important that this happened, and I would like to be very, I think I need to be very personal when speaking about it. And first of all, the ballet community for me was a very safe haven. It was a very safe place to be as a young dancer. In those terms that we normally think about #MeToo. At the same time, I have to be so humble and knowing that it's so many things I don't know. And I think that has been the big eye-opener, that I really don't know until I know. Until somebody opens their mouth, until somebody chooses to give me the confidence of sharing their stories. Then, second of that, #MeToo for me has been, I remember the date, it was about a year ago, when I was in one of these manifestations with the female actresses, most of all at the National Theatre in Norway, and they did a very powerful presentation. And I was thinking, so what do we do, how do I take this further? And then apart from the healing process, but to really, how can we make this place a different place, and what is my contribution in this? And I think every one of us have to think what is possible for us to do. And for me, it was to there and then totally change the repertoire of the company. I believe that my number one mission, my number one contribution is purely programming, giving jobs, giving opportunities. That is the number one thing I can do.
Now, Sarah, as a journalist, of course, you've spoken with, you had opportunities to speak with victims from either harassment or bullying. Were you surprised by some of their stories? What was your takeaway from them, so as a human being?
Yeah. You know, I wasn't surprised that the abuse existed. I was surprised at some of the, levels of it, names that were brought in. I mean, that really it can be at any level of an organization, of a dance company, whether abuse by fellow dancers, we've seen examples of that, abuse by a choreographer, abuse by an artistic director. There's really no difference between what happens in the context of the ballet company and what can happen in a corporation, a news organization, a Hollywood production company. Really there can be abuse, and women are vulnerable, but it's also hasn't only affected women, it has also affected young men. So I think that has been the revelation that dancers, especially at the lower ranks, are extremely vulnerable. For many of the reasons that we talked about at the conference, for reasons that they start in dance very young, they are removed from the influence of their parents very often. I mean, I know as a dance student myself, I saw my ballet teacher more often than I saw my own parents. There's a hierarchical system in ballet. So for all of these reasons, the dancer is very vulnerable. And I guess what I was very moved by and touched by was the courage in speaking up. And I think also now media organizations are listening. So I guess I'm grateful that there is the opportunity to tell these stories now and air what has been kept secret.
And Ingrid, during the conference, you shared some of the steps that you've taken as director of the Norwegian National Ballet to either change the culture or at least reflect on the culture, see whether there was any issues to be dealt with. Can you perhaps remind us of some of those steps in practical ways?
Yeah, no, we have a zero tolerance for any type of harassment in our house, in the Norwegian National Opera and Ballet, and we have conducted 2 big surveys for the entire house with lots of follow-up, one-to-one, small groups, big groups, discussing, and actually, how can I say, entering into this together. Because it's so many areas, it's so many new territories for us to explore as leaders, for my team, for the company. So this is something about that openness and actually not having all the answers, which I feel has been quite fruitful. We also evaluate every performance and we ask if our ethical standards are withheld. We ask all the time, we have ethical guidelines that everybody has to sign. So those are the quite structural things, but then comes how do you deal with each different incident? How do you manage to take care? Because sometimes you have situations where you're responsible for everybody. You should also you should be also taking care of if you're accused of something. That is also a responsibility. So when I speak about the program and the repertory, it's also because I believe in the power of what we do, and I believe in the power of hiring people and giving jobs. And that's why I have set for myself that since we have the possibility, we are 80% government funded in Norway, which means we can take more chances. So I can take more chances on unknown names, and I have set up for myself to go for a 50% on the main stage of female choreographers. That is my contribution because I'm able to.
I love that point. If I could just say, I love that point that you said yesterday about how that was one way you addressed this situation, was to bring female choreographers to the stage and show that's a tangible and material way to show there's other opportunities, that you support outspoken women and constructive women and women making art, and I applaud that. Yeah, share the stories and their perspectives, give new perspectives.
But at the same time, I have to say that I can do this. I feel an obligation on behalf of the community, and it's important to say that we have the support system to do it. So I also have such respect, and that everybody, every company, every artistic director has to do something that they can do, and it will be very different because our systems are so different, even though we have so much in common.
Now, perhaps just to conclude, we kept returning to the notion of leadership during the conference. Could you each perhaps tell me in a few words what you think is good leadership these days in the dance world? What should we expect from a leader?
I think, I guess what I would say is listening. And it goes to your point about humility, being humble. Listening to dancers. I mean, the dancers, this was not a ballet example, but the dancers of the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater last year walked out on their own gala in the relationship to a labor dispute. So they said, we are not going to be fundraising tools, we're going to take our own initiative, and we're going to not participate because we disagree with the leadership of the company and the leadership going on right now, and we don't think it values us enough. We're not appreciated. You know, in a situation like that, the good leader would listen, would not take offense. I think that's a difficult, very difficult thing to do. But, you know, going back thousands of years, the very first full manuscript that human civilization has was a set of maxims written by an ancient Egyptian, ways to be in the world, basically, from him to his son. And he wrote a lot about power, and one thing he said was, it is the responsibility, if you are in power, to listen. That's what you need to do. You need to listen to those below you. So I feel like that's a very important part of leadership, really, from the outset.
Ingrid, what do you think?
No, it's so true. And I think it's all about remembering that these positions are lent to us. We don't own them at all, and we just have to do the best we can. The years that we have this responsibility and the gift that it is to lead extremely gifted people. I believe in value-based leadership rather than policy-based or rule-based, because values last longer. Although it's tempting sometimes, like, oh, someone should. No, I believe that it should come from the inside, and I believe in the culture that is coming, hopefully from me, but also the culture within the artistic staff and the dancers. And I believe in trying every day to do the right thing, and also surround yourself with people who will be thinking differently or will say against you. I believe that is healthy.
Thank you so much to both of you for being here at the conference and also sharing your thoughts with me.